Good morning. I will now call to order the August 18, 2022 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners meeting. County Administrator Gary Schmidt is out on vacation this week, but we have County Operations Officer Nancy Bush has been designated as the acting county administrator. Nancy, would you please call the roll?
Yes, good morning, everyone. First, I want to let you know who's here staffing today. We have Tony Marinick, who is clerk to the board. We have Jeff Munns, who is here for county council. Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here. And Martha Schrader is away on business. Thank you very much. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you have joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public that Robert's Rules of Order will be followed during this business meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Nancy, can you introduce the first item?
Yes, first we have the Housing Authority public hearing. And clerk, can you please bring in Ann Landstrom?
Yes.
I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Housing Authority Board. Ann, welcome to our discussion today.
Welcome.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today I have Hillary Merritt, our FSS coordinator, here with me to assist if you should have any follow-up questions to my presentation. Today we are conducting a required public hearing in order to bring our Family Self-Sufficiency, also known as FSS, action plan up to regulatory requirements. Normally, we review our FSS action plan annually at the same time we are doing our annual plan review with our resident advisory board and subsequent annual plan public hearing. However, due to regulatory changes made in the mid-year this year, we are required to make these immediate changes at this time. In order to meet the requirements, we are required to take into account public and board comments into consideration before adopting a final version to send to HUD by no later than September 30th. Therefore, at the conclusion of this hearing, we are immediately requesting the board place on consent agenda the approval of the final FSS action plan and a board resolution adopting this action plan. After adoption, we will submit the FSS action plan to HUD for final review and approval. While the FSS action plan had 19 overall changes, which were attachment A to your staff report, most were required wording changes that are not substantive optional policy changes to the way we normally operate. The attachment A to the packet has 7 articles that are changes that were more discretionary changes in policy that do change the way the program normally operates. And those are the ones I'm going to outline very quickly to you today and allow you to have questions. Under Chapter 2, Section 2C, HUD now allows FSS programs to widen its operations and enter into a cooperative agreement with other multifamily assisted housing owners to make our program available to these owners. HACC is not choosing to take this option because at this time we have more families in our program on the wait list than our staff are available to serve right now. We made the decision, as we can always change this policy later if we determine we have larger capacity. Under Chapter 2, Section 2E, we are expanding the FSS participation to public housing, resident opportunity and self-sufficiency program participants, and to the newly allowed foster youth to independence participants. These programs were not allowed before, and we want to add them into our program. Under Chapter 3, Section 1C, we identified we are requiring our FSS coordinators to perform the routine occupancy specialist function in addition to the coaching functions of a coordinator. This specifically is identifying that when a family enrolls, their entire program administration is taken on by the coordinator, thereby making the coordinator the primary and only contact for the participant, and ensures the coordinator is aware of all family dynamics while participating in the program. This is a very common practice amongst many housing authorities. Under Chapter 3, Section IF, this is the most substantial policy change that is encouraged by HUD. We are recommending that we take all forfeited escrow accounts, which are accounts that the families who have been unsuccessful in graduating them from the FSS program, be put into a separate account and be used to help other FSS participants in completing an interim goal or task required to meet their graduation. This policy also establishes the qualifications to receive such funding and the priority preference of who will be using these limited resources. Normally, forfeited funds are put back into the rental assistance pool, and this policy would no longer do that and keep the money earmarked for FSS participants only. The fifth policy under Chapter 4, Section 2C, HACC is choosing to allow families to participate in the FSS program more than once if they were not able to successfully complete the program the first time. We normally only allow a family one opportunity to participate. Under 4.2D, the Housing Authority is choosing to allow any household member to participate in FSS, but the regulations still limit it to only one family member per household. This is a change, as we used to only be allowed to allow the head of household to participate. And we understand now, to disrupt the cycle of generational poverty, it is best to open the doors of the FSS participation to the adult children in a household who are not typically the head of household. And the final change we are recommending is under 5.2E. The Housing Authority is choosing to offer supportive services to former FSS families who have successfully completed its contract of participation. Normally, once they graduate, the support from the coordinator is ended. But we are finding that if they're wanting to purchase a home, they would need a continued assistance beyond the graduation date to see that through to completion. I'm concluding my presentation and allowing for board questions.
Thank you. Do you have any comments you would like to make?
I do not.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on this presentation so far? Commissioner Scholl and then Commissioner Fisher.
On the last section having to do with continuing to support people who have graduated from the FSS, wouldn't that take away funds from helping people who have not yet been through the program?
In this circumstance, it's not usually funding that we're helping them with. It's just those community connections and resources through a phone call or email. It's not.
I see. Okay. Okay. And one more question, please. On Chapter 2C, you mentioned that there were people on the wait list for FSS support that you don't have the ability to serve. Is that because of dollars, properties, or staff?
Staffing, we were given a new grant, but we have not been able to hire a second additional FSS coordinator yet at this time.
Okay. Well, yeah, why? I mean, is it because you haven't found the right person yet?
Well, we're in the job market that we're in.
Okay.
And Human Resources is kind of flooded with job openings right now, so we're kind of in a queue to be
I see.
posted.
Okay. Forgive me for being
No,
the
that's great.
impatient type.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
impatient too.
Thank you
That's
very
great.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. And I also just want to thank you for the wonderful table that outlined all the changes. So easy to follow along and get a big picture because of all the sort of more detailed areas. So I really appreciate that. I'm interested, and because we're in this this process of kind of consolidating our services for housing and homelessness and getting our one department, I'm interested, and we can't, way the federal government is, we're in these silos. This is this program, these are these requirements, this is this, but how do we create that continuum and coordinate with the other parts of our supportive systems for people that are dealing with housing and homelessness? And how are we moving towards more integration?
So for this program, unfortunately, it's very siloed. The federal dollars, the best way to unsilo it is the first policy option I discussed, was where we could work with other multifamily partners outside of our area, outside of the federal programs we operate now under the Housing Authority. So that would be a way to integrate, and I would hope once we get staffing up, we would be able to get through our wait list and start talking about that. But I think right now our goal is we're working on one path right now, where the scattered sites are looking at being disposed. We want to get families in 5 years ready to be able to purchase those homes. So that's where we're focusing. And like I said at the end of that policy, we can change that policy every year. We can look at it every year and reconsider that after we've seen where the wait lists are and what direction we're going and get hired up.
Great, thank you for that.
Ann Leenstra, you're online. Do you have any clarifying questions or comments you would like to make on this?
Commissioner Leenstra, you're muted.
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I will now open the meeting for public testimony, and I will take in-person testimony first. I have several cards here, but however, there's no indication that anybody wants to speak regarding this housing subject during this public hearing. I don't see anybody in the audience, correct? Okay, thank you. Tony, do we have anybody online?
Chair Smith, at this time, I do not have anyone registered to speak on this hearing. If there is anyone who would like to provide public comment on this hearing, please use the raise hand feature, and I will call on you in the order received. Chair Smith, I do not have any hands raised at this time.
Thank you, Tony. I will now close the public hearing and ask if there's any further clarifying questions or comments.
I have a comment, and that is that I appreciate the program, appreciate the work, but I think this is a optimum time to point out that these grants and the way they are structured and the oversight and the requirements for staffing and again, are so intensive. And we have a lot of these programs come from federal or state funding, even local funding. With Metro, there has to be that monitoring of the dollars and so forth. So we're in a staffing situation or a matter where there's not a lot of people in the job market that want to do this, and it's highly competitive. And we just acknowledge that as labor intensive as these dollars are, you know, we always wonder if it's worthwhile at times, but we're trying to help people the best we can, but yet we have the constraint of trying to hire people to do the work. So those are the territory, but I think this is an opportunity just to showcase that. Thank you.
Good comments, commissioners. I will now entertain a motion.
I move we direct staff to submit the updated Family Self-Sufficiency Action Plan for the board's final approval.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved that we accept the Self-Sufficiency Action Plan, and Commissioner Fisher has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Tony, would you please take the poll?
Commissioner Leenstra.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much for coming and presenting today.
Thank you.
Nancy, what's next?
So next, we have the Housing Authority Consent Agenda. This is the Housing Authority Consent Agenda only. And Clerk, can you please read that consent agenda?
Housing Authority Consent Agenda, there are 3 items. Item 1, approval of a personal services contract with the Father's Heart Street Ministry to provide supportive services to households in hotel, motel-based emergency shelters and assignment to Clackamas County. Contract value is $500,170 for 1 year. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with Impact Northwest to provide supportive housing, case management and shelter and care services and assignment to Clackamas County. Contract value is $602,336.38. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of resolution 1969, delegating authority to finalize the terms of, execute, acknowledge, and deliver the actions and documents as reasonably may be required for a loan to the Merrillhurst Commons Affordable Housing Development in Lake Oswego. Loan value is $3 million to be repaid over 60 years. Funding is through Regional Affordable Housing Bonds. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that concludes the list.
Thank you. Does any commissioner wish to remove any item? Ann Leenstra, I will entertain a motion from you.
I move we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda as read by the clerk.
Thank you.
Second.
Commissioner Leenstra has moved for approval of the housing consent agenda. Commissioner Fisher has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Tony, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Leenstra.
Aye.
Commissioner Schull.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And thank you for coming today. We appreciate your participation. I will now adjourn as the Housing Authority Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Nancy, what's next?
So next we have the county consent agenda. So clerk, could you please read the consent agenda for us?
Clackamas County Consent Agenda, elected officials, Item 1, approval of previous business meeting minutes for the Board of County Commissioners. Item 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Greater Oregon Watershed Council to provide community service work crews, agreement value not to exceed $50,000 over 5 years. Funding is through the Greater Oregon Watershed Council. No county general funds are involved for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Juvenile, Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas Education Service District to fund county staff providing Youth Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act services. Agreement value is $43,000 for 1 year. Funding is through Clackamas Education Service District. No county general funds are involved. Finance, Item 1, approval of a board order authorizing a purchase order to Oracle America Incorporated for PeopleSoft Enterprise Resource Planning and Human Resources Information Management Software Maintenance Services. Purchase order value is $546,556.32 for 1 year. Funding is through departmental cost allocations and approximately $182,185 in budgeted county general funds. Item 2, resolution acknowledging material weakness in internal controls over compliance for fiscal year 2020 and describing corrective action in accordance with Oregon Revised Statute 297.466. No fiscal impact. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of an amendment extending the duration and increasing funding to a contract with TVW Incorporated for janitorial services at county facilities. Amendment value is $227,967.70 for 2 months. Contract value is increased to $6,892,382.27 for 5 years and 2 months. Funding is through departmental cost allocations and approximately $68,400 in budgeted county general funds. Transportation and Development, Item 1, approval to apply for a Bridge Investment Program discretionary transportation grant to replace the Bull Run River Bridge. Grant value is $11,509,700. 20% matching funds of $2,877,425. Funded from the County Road Fund, and Weyerhaeuser will contribute $10,000 towards this project. Total project value, $14,397,125. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval to apply for a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant with the U.S. Department of Transportation for implementing a Safe Systems Transportation Safety Project on Stafford Road. Grant value is $6,307,576.40. 20% matching funds of $1,530,761.20 funded from the County Road Fund. Total project value is $7,838,337.60. No county general funds are involved. Item 3, approval of a board order authorizing a purchase order for Nelson Truck Equipment to purchase one new Ford F-550 4x4 truck with utility body and man lift. Purchase order value is $176,993.57. Funding is through designated Clackamas Broadband Exchange ARPA funds. No county general funds are involved. Health, Housing, and Human Services, Item 1, approval to apply for funding opportunity with Business Oregon for COVID-19 impact assistance programs for child care assistance. Grant value is $250,000 for 1 year. Funding through Business Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Item 2, approval of an amendment extending the duration, increasing funding, and modifying the scope of work of a grant with Northwest Housing Alternatives Incorporated for home-based program operations and client financial assistance. Amendment value is $115,000 for 1 year. Grant value is now $462,316.42 for 4 years. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Item 3, approval of an amendment extending the duration of a grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation to fund a pilot project for transit service along the I-205 corridor. Agreement value remains at $900,000, but is now extended from 2 years to 3 years. Funding is through Oregon Department of Transportation statewide transportation improvement funds, Clackamas County statewide transportation improvement funds, and Washington County committed funds. No county general funds are involved. Item 4, approval of a subrecipient amendment extending the duration, increasing funding, and modifying the scope of work and adjusting budgeting of a federal subrecipient agreement with the City of Lake Oswego on behalf of its Lake Oswego Adult Community Center to provide client services, COVID support, nutrition services, health promotion, respite care, and transportation services to eligible individuals. Amendment value is $119,850 for 1 year. Grant value is now $254,727 for 2 years. Funding is through the Older Americans Act, Ride Connection, and TriMet. No county general funds are involved. Item 5, approval of a subrecipient amendment extending the duration, increasing funding, modifying the scope of work, and adjusting budgeting of a federal subrecipient agreement with the City of Sandy on behalf of its Sandy Senior and Community Center to provide community client services, COVID support, nutrition services, health promotion, energy assistance, and transportation services to eligible individuals. Amendment value is $209,947 for 1 year. Grant value is now $416,653 for 2 years. Funding is through the Older Americans Act, Ride Connection, TriMet, and HEAT Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Item 6, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority for community restoration services for individuals determined unfit to proceed to trial. Agreement value not to exceed $764,788. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Item 7, approval of a federal subrecipient grant agreement with Central City Concern for continuation of the law enforcement diversion program. Agreement value is $1,543,469.14 for 1 year, including $395,000 of county general funds. Funding is through U.S. Department of Justice, Metro Supportive Housing Services, and budgeted county general funds. Item 8, approval of an amendment modifying the funding of fiscal year 2022 for the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority, funding the local public health authority for Clackamas County. Agreement value remains at $15,740,170.64 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Item 9, approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement with Clackamas County Fire District to fund capacity for emergency medical services. Grant value is $75,000. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Item 10, approval of assignment from the Housing Authority of a personal services contract with the Father's Heart Street Ministry to provide supportive services to households in hotel, motel-based emergency shelters. No fiscal impact. Contract value remains at $500,170 for 1 year. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services. No county general funds are involved. Item 11, approval of assignment from the Housing Authority of a personal services contract with Impact Northwest to provide supportive housing, case management, and shelter and care services. No fiscal impact. Contract value remains at $602,336.38. Funding is through Metro Supportive Housing Services. No county general funds are involved. Madam Chair, that concludes the list.
Thank you, Tony, for that very good reading. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything off of this particular consent agenda?
I was going to ask him to repeat all that,
Were
but
you? Yeah, thank you. Seeing none, any comments? Tony, would you, I'll accept the motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Schull has moved to approve the consent agenda, and Commissioner Fisher has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Tony, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
aye.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a development agency. Nancy?
Yes, next is the consent agenda for the Development Agency. And Tony, can you please read the consent agenda?
Development Agency Consent Agenda, one item, approval of a personal services contract with Harper, Hauf, Peterson, Regelis for administration services for the Linwood Avenue Improvement Project. Contract value is $805,797. Funding is through North Clackamas Revitalization Area Urban Renewal District. No county general funds are involved.
Thank you. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything off of this consent agenda? I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Development Agency consent agenda.
Seconded.
Commissioner Fisher has moved, we approve this consent agenda, and Commissioner Schull has seconded. Any further discussion? I will, Tony, please call the poll.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you. I will now adjourn as a development agency and convene as a Water Environment Services Board. Nancy, what's next?
So next we have the Water Environment Services consent agenda. And Tony, can you please read that consent agenda?
Water Environment Services, three items. Item one, approval of an amendment increasing funding and modifying scope of work of a public improvement contract with Goodfellow Brothers LLC for the Tri-County Water Resource Recovery Facility Fill Removal Project. Amendment value is $640,875. Contract value is now $1,303,375. Funding is through Water Environment Services, Sanitary Sewer Construction Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item two, approval of a public improvement contract with OR Inc. for construction of the Maintenance Access Platforms Project. Contract value is $171,050. Funding is through Water Environment Services, Sanitary Sewer Construction Funds. No county general funds are involved. Item three, approval of a public improvement contract with R.L. Reimers Company for construction of the Bolton's Pump Station Rehabilitation and Upgrades Project. Contract value is $1,049,975. Funding is through Water Environment Services, Sanitary Sewer Construction Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Thank you. Does any commissioner wish to pull any items from this consent agenda?
Chair,
Yes.
I was going to ask to pull item C, but I see staff is not in the room on this one. And also, I expressed concerns on Tuesday or Wednesday, yesterday, with item A, just concerned about that. So I will not pull them because there's no staff there, but I will not be supporting them today.
Okay, that's fine. We did get some answers in email either yesterday afternoon or this morning, and Commissioner Savas, I'm not sure if those answers addressed your questions or not, but
Yeah,
there was something.
it was incomplete, and I replied back this morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't see your reply. That's all right.
No worries.
Okay. Commissioner Fisher?
So I am curious if these are time sensitive, if we can,
Well, what we can do is if Commissioner Savas wants to vote no,
Right.
I assume we have 3 votes to pass it.
right, but if they're not essential to pass now, to have Commissioner Savas's,
I do not have the answer to that question without staff being here to answer that.
okay, because I appreciate knowing the answers to what Commissioner Savas is concerned about, or if you want to address it or talk about it.
Well, I can talk about A first, which is the we went out to bid for the removal of the excess material on the fill project at the Tri-Cities plant, and that was RFP went out for that, and apparently low bid came in. The project's now more than doubled with the amendment, and I just don't know how close those other bids were. And, I know that was an error on staff's part, not really recognizing that was far more material than they had initially thought, but perhaps that would have changed the bid environment. So that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. If it was a small amendment for a small amount, percentage of the money, that wouldn't bother me very much. And item C, which is about the residual capacity left over, my line of questioning on that one was how much capacity is there in that area for that pump station? The answer I got back was it was 4.5 MGD. Was at capacity until the reroute, but no answer what the reroute actually resulted in. Did it result in more available capacity or not? So that's the gist of it. And I put my email in, but have not seen a response. But I don't think my no vote's going to make that much of a difference, but I thought it was worth pointing out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, go ahead, Chair Smith.
My intent is to offer this to a vote. I don't think it is in the purview of the Board of County Commissioners to try to micromanage our sewer department when there's so many households dependent on it. I think, Paul, if you got your answers, whether they would be satisfactory to you, I don't know. But I do know this department is working very hard. Regarding the increased bid on the removal of that pile of dirt, there was an estimate made on how large that pile of dirt was, which I believe was correct. However, what the Oregon City required is that not only did Wes remove that pile of dirt, but this whole area encompassing where the pile of dirt was to lower the grade. That was the issue here. And I believe that the requirements changed for that removal, and therefore the bid was greater than what they had anticipated. That happens, We do the best we can. Governance is not an exact science. We just try to do the best we can. I believe they have it in their budget to do this, and it needs to proceed. It's been there since our current director took the directorship. Before Greg Geist came in, it's been sitting there. Nancy?
Yes, I just heard back from staff that item A is time sensitive and must go.
Okay.
This time.
Thank you for that. We have two other people in the queue, Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, so I'm good with supporting A, and the reason why, I was very concerned when you see, oh my gosh, this bid, it's like we're paying double? What's happened? Where's our, like I say to everyone when we're talking about accountability, where's our quality assurance? How do we know we're doing the work correctly? But Greg Geist said that the bid for the $600 and some thousand was actually less, quite a bit less than the other bids that they received, and it's based on the cubic yards removed. So the actual amount just reflects how much work needs to be done. And I was comfortable with his due diligence and his response. So I'm good with supporting A, but if that's not time sensitive, I would rather have it removed so that all questions could be answered, if that's possible. If it could wait till after the break.
I understand that Greg is on the Zoom call. Tony, would you let Greg Geist in? And Paul, would you like to ask him some questions at this point?
Well, I may. I mean, I'll let him talk to it a little bit, but I just want to clarify, I have no intent on micromanaging. But this fill requirement is at least 20 years old. I was aware of it a long time ago, and my point that I made here a couple of weeks ago when we first approved the 600,000 was that had we acted in a more timely way and not at the most expensive time of the cost of labor in the bidding environment we currently have, we would have saved a lot of money. So this is substantially, this is more than double. And we should have known about that, frankly, and I think the previous, I knew about it a long time ago. I just assumed our staff did as well.
Greg, would you like to come on and address these questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith, Commissioners. And Commissioner Savas, yes, that pile has been there since before my time. We did not have a deadline to remove it. And we've actually worked with both the Cove development several years ago to take that material, and more recently, another local developer. COVID quashed that deal, and that project didn't move forward. At the same time, when we did, not at the same time, but when we worked with the city on the solids handling expansion project, they did give us a timeline to remove that material, and that's the end of this year, December 31st. So over the years, we've made attempts to do some kind of public-private, partnership to save money. Neither one of those came to fruition, and just like our obligation was, 12 years ago or more, we still have the exact same obligation today. So we could have hauled it back then, and that may have been the right thing to do. We worked over the years to try to find a cheaper alternative, and now we're here. And the reason that it's twice what the initial contract was is literally there's twice as much material there than we thought was there. But it's the same amount of material that we would have needed to move at any time to achieve that balanced cut and fill. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, like I said, I just think that if we would have been more timely in removal of it and more accurate in the amount of material, that we could have saved our ratepayers substantially, hundreds of thousands of dollars had we acted sooner. That's my point.
Well, and I would just say that if we had been more accurate, which we would, again, if we had this to do over again, this is not something we do. We don't move mountains very often. We would have gotten that final grading permit from the city before we let the contract out. Had we been more accurate initially or waited until after we got that final grading permit, it would have been the same amount that it is right now. So we didn't cost any extra money ultimately to our ratepayers because we initially underestimated.
Thank you. Greg, stay on. Commissioner Savas, do you have any further questions or comments?
Well, again, I'm not going to belabor item A. Again, had we acted 3 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I think we could have saved ourselves a lot of money at the time. But on item 3, or C, that is, with regard, I saw the email response with regard to the capacity issue. And so there was a mention of a reroute, but it doesn't mention the result of the reroute as far as the remaining available capacity above current capacity. You didn't spell that out.
So there was a reroute. We had a failure of that force main, and the original route that was taken was extremely difficult to access. It went right near the foundation of a private residence, and so it made a whole lot more sense. And we got the city's cooperation to reroute that pipe along a walking path with excellent access. Part of that reroute, though, changed the elevation that those pumps need to pump up to. So it raised that elevation a little bit to the point where the pumps that were there weren't quite as efficient as they needed to be and didn't meet under maximum flows. We weren't meeting our firm capacity requirements by 10, 15%, something like that. So the pumps are from 2002. We need to replace all the other equipment in there anyway. So yeah, we're upsizing those pumps, but there was some diminution of capacity as a result of that reroute.
Yeah, so could you just give me just the number? What's the available residual capacity beyond what today's being used?
I would have to consult our engineers on that.
Right. No worries.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, I'm okay moving forward with this. Thank you, Greg, for that. I appreciate the answer to all commissioners' questions. But, this stuff is important. This is improvements that need to happen. And as a board we have a responsibility to make sure that things run as smoothly as possible with our pump stations. And so I'm good moving forward. Would not want to see this delayed after the break.
Thank you. I'm going to accept a motion to approve this particular consent agenda.
I move approval of the Water and Environment Services consent agenda.
Seconded.
Commissioner Fisher has moved for approval of this consent agenda. Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Tony, please call the poll.
Commissioner Savas,
No.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 3-1. Thank you very much. I will now adjourn as a Water Environment Service Board and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners. Nancy, what's next?
So Chair, up next, we have public communication.
Thank you very much. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon Revised Statutes and County Code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comment shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public communication at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. However, we will not be reading them at the business meeting due to time constraints. I will now open the public meeting for testimony. I will take the in-person cards first, and I have several. However, we have 2 distinguished people in the room today. We have 2 public officials, and I'm going to call you both up at the same time. We have Brian Nava and Bronson Rueda. Please come forward together, and you each get 5 minutes because you're public officials. Please come forward and introduce yourselves and your positions. You can decide whichever one wants to go first.
Okay. Is this on? Okay, perfect.
I'll go first.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Smith, members of the board. My name is Bronson Rueda, the Clackamas County Assessor. I am providing public testimony today in response to the changes to County Code 6.03. This topic came to my attention Monday evening, August 15th, 2022, a few days ago. I am still in research mode, and I'm not ready to address any implication of the changes, but I do want to let my constituents know I'm not silent or inactive on this topic. In the last couple of days, I have informed the following people of the changes the BCC made to the Clackamas County Code 6.03. The President of the Oregon State Association of County Assessors, the President of the Oregon Association of County Tax Collectors, and both organizations' legislative consultant. I have also contacted the Oregon Department of Revenue, my former employer of 8 years, because they are statutorily charged with support, assistance, and oversight of Oregon's assessment and taxation functions, including county assessor departments. Next, I want to inform the public of 2 Oregon statutes that cover circumstances of assessor inadequacy in Oregon. First, ORS 308.055, which reads, Special Assessor appointed if assessor fails to act. If the assessor fails to commence or continuously and vigorously prosecute the making of the assessment in the manner provided by law, the county court or Board of County Commissioners may summarily appoint a special assessor. The special assessor shall qualify in the same manner as the assessor. The special assessor shall have all the duties, rights, privileges, and emoluments of the assessor in making the assessment for the current year. The acts of the special assessor shall have the same effect as if they had been done by the assessor. The second statute is ORS 308.062. This is a much longer statute, but at a high-level summary, it states the statute gives the Department of Revenue authority to take over operations of an assessor's office when appraisals are not conducted as provided by law. Lastly, I want to make an honest plea to the board to please work collaboratively with me in the future when items that impact my department come to the forefront. An email from any of you, your staff, the county administrator or his staff, or legal counsel would be welcome. Currently, I don't have resources allocated to routinely investigate BCC agendas for items that impact my department. I rely on county leadership to give me a heads up on items similar to the changes made to the County Code 6.03. My staff work diligently year-round administering the property tax laws of Oregon, and I expect that of them. And that is where my focus is as well. If your expectations of me and my department are different, please let me know so we can discuss, work together, and I can adjust as necessary. I truly look forward to working with each of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So before I begin, I think it's important to point out, since our comments are fairly similar, we independently wrote these, and I haven't seen his,
That's true.
nor has he seen mine.
true.
So, but it is interesting that we're going to have some similar comments here today. Good morning, fellow voter-elected county officials. As the Clackamas County Treasurer, elected by the great people of Clackamas County, I wanted to let you know that I oppose the amendment to Chapter 6.03 to expand the definition of a disaster-type emergency to include conduct of an elected official for malfeasance in office, neglect of duty, or failure to meet statutory requirements as determined by the Board of County Commissioners. After I've had a chance to consult with my various colleagues, friends, mentors, associations, legislature, and more, I may come back to the board to discuss the contents of this amendment in more detail. But I'm here today to talk to you about my disappointment in how this amendment was processed and passed. I think we can all agree that this amendment has the potential to have a significant impact to my office and a good portion of the elected officials throughout the county. I not only have considered you trusted colleagues in the past, but also friends. We go to lunches, we go to coffee, we work to solve significant county issues, and so much more. Not one of you reached out to me to discuss this amendment to the code, not one. I found out about the amendment from a fellow colleague after one of the readings, and I'll be honest, I am having an extremely difficult time with my office sitting just right next to each of yours, understanding why no one would come down to my office to discuss these changes before any readings or action. Seek advice on my thoughts, feelings, and how to best write and implement a change of this nature. We discussed one county, and while I don't want to speak for my fellow elected officials, I would venture to guess they would agree with me when I say this was not very one county. This was not very collaborative. We are equally elected officials. I am elected by the same people who elect you. I completely understand, and I mean this, I completely understand why some members of the board are wanting to make a change of this nature. But we could have talked about the best way to hopefully achieve a mutually agreeable and collaborative end result for the board, for me, my staff, and maybe most importantly for the people of Clackamas County who elect us. Let me be clear, none of us want nefarious acts to occur at this county, and if they do, I want them to come to a halt just as much as you. But the way this amendment was passed treated all of us, other elected officials, as if we don't matter. Quite frankly, it was rude to not reach out to me and talk to me to get insight and help with a solution. Again, we have a relationship, or at least I thought we did, and no one had the courtesy to give me a phone call to discuss these changes. Commissioners, the substance of these changes are significant, but I want to point out today that the process that it went through to get passed was personally hurtful. I thank you for your time today and for listening, and I look forward to talking to you guys more in the future.
Thank you very much. Just some points of clarification. Jeffrey, this particular changes to this code are very nominal in nature. And during this process, Stephen Madcore and the County Council Office has been working with the sheriff collaboratively. We have changed it, and we have changed it, and we have changed it. Brian, you and I talked on the phone quite at length of that. So I take exception when you say that this board had not been in communication. We have been, and I listened to you, and we made changes to the code. So to say that collaboration did not occur, I object to that. I have also in the past sent out emails to my fellow elected officials regarding certain administrative duties. For instance, I will cite an email several months ago that came from our county, Jody Cochran. Yes, and about contract administration. I says, elected official, please make sure that we just had an audit, our auditor, of contract administration. Please, if you abide by this, that is fine. If there are still contracts that need to be codified, recorded, sent over to Finance Department, do that. Crickets, I heard nothing. I've also sent out another email regarding county business to all of the elected officials. I heard nothing. Secondly, this particular amendment has been posted online in accordance with public meetings law for all people to look at. It is not a common practice for myself or any of the board members to necessarily say, oh, elected officials, this is for you. I mean, we have all kinds of audits that affect you both, that we do. I don't necessarily say, oh, this is here. So it would behoove us all to have better communication. I agree. However, I assumed that my fellow elected officials are paying attention to the governance of this county. I am not going to call every single elected official. For instance, today's consent agenda. It affects all departments. It affects everybody in the county. So with that in mind, the sheriff said, she said what she said. We worked with her. We made many accommodations for the sheriff. And I think you both know the reason why this came about. It was the election situation that we had that has the potential of repeating itself because there was, here we are in the August election, a small mistake, although it was a mistake made, that had to be reissued. If the sheriff would have come to me and asked a question during this meeting, do you plan on taking over my department and running it? I would have said no. I do not want the sheriff's department. This board does not want to manage the jail or any other departments. But she didn't give me the courtesy of doing that publicly. I told her that privately. I pose a question to you both. This county has experienced 3 huge natural disasters within 18 months. And let's talk about the firestorm for a moment. In September 2020, the other commission issued a state of emergency. And then we had an ice storm in February, a state of emergency that was issued. Did your functions change in your office because of those declared emergencies? And did anybody from this dais come in and try to overtake or run the functions of your office during those emergencies?
So, yes, our functions did change significantly as a result of
Not because
disasters.
of the action that we took specifically on you. You had to maintain and push money out.
Right. So, and so I was going to address it in 2 parts. Correct, our functions did change significantly as a result of the emergencies, all the declared emergencies. Second portion of you're right. This particular board did not do anything to take action to implement any additional changes.
As a matter of fact, declared emergencies, I acted because I'm chair, because it's allowed for in law and statute. It came at the behest of Nancy Bush, was the head of our natural disaster unit. Stephen Madcore, our attorney, and Gary Schmidt asked me if I would do that. It's not something that we sit here and think, oh, geez, we need another emergency declaration. That's not a good governance per se. We would rather not have it, but in the event that something egregious should happen, I believe it is, incumbent on this board to offer leadership in dire emergencies. I have 3 commissioners in the queue. Who was first? Commissioner Savas, go ahead.
My apologies for not reaching out to you. My presumption was that at EMT or other lines of communications that your office was reached out to. That was my presumption. I didn't have any cause, frankly, to reach out to you independently. But in hindsight, perhaps I should have, not now knowing that there's a communication breakdown. Perhaps in the future I will. I was shocked that it got as far as it did. And frankly, in all honesty, I think we need to be clear here is that the substantial changes that were made at the last draft didn't occur until the last few days. So they had, I think, had we really thought about that and thought the extent of those changes, which I think are pretty serious and overreaching, then I think there would have been more cause for greater outreach. So I give you my personal apology for not reaching out to you individually and all the other elected officials. I do feel it is somewhat condescending for this board to think that we can micromanage. If there's anything tangible to micromanaging, it's this, the potential of micromanaging. I would never attempt to step into your shoes. I have a business background, but I wouldn't attempt to jump in your shoes to understand the technical aspects of your job as a tax assessor, yours as a treasurer, that of the election clerk, and that of the sheriff. Those are highly technical things. You have to have a career in that to understand that and appreciate that. And the fact that one person for a period of time could be that person to oversee or intervene and wait for county commissioners to be convened to approve or not approve, a lot of damage can be done in that period of time. That's what concerns me. So I apologize, and I understand your concerns. Thank you for coming today.
A point of clarification on Commissioner Savas's remarks. This is not micromanaging elected officials' offices whatsoever. It's a point of clarification. Commissioner Fisher?
I think Commissioner Scholl was there.
Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Good morning, County Assessor Rueda, County Treasurer Nava. Thank you for your testimony this morning. This Chapter 6.03 was a very controversial subject, and across the county didn't come with very much positive support. Last week, Commissioner Savas and I voted no on the vote to adopt Chapter 6.03. But I'd like to remind you and the rest of the board that when a board passes something in the future, the same board can change it again. And that might very well happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And as Commissioner Savas says, you know, he apologizes. I will also say I'm very sorry. I was under the wrong assumption based on conversations that I've had internally with staff that other elected officials were communicated with, and we worked extensively. I worked extensively with the sheriff on this, but you know what? If you feel hurt, looked over, that's on us. I'm all about accountability. I appreciate it, you coming and talking to us. Thank you so much. And this isn't everything. We are in, as Commissioner Scholl says, we're in ever-changing efforts to look at how do we address the challenges before us. And things can change, and they may change. So let's continue to engage in the conversation and make sure that we are looking out for all of the people that we are sworn to work for, and those are the people in our community. So thank you both so much.
And I agree with those two statements as well. We sit here, like I say, we do the best we can under extreme circumstances. During the elections, I was inundated. Do something about the election. Do something about and I'm still getting calls. Are you going to have oversight over the November election? What are you going to do about the November election? The clerk runs the elections, and it will remain so. We can always improve. We're humans. We can always improve, but we're doing the very best we can at the time with the information we are given at the time. I want to thank you both for coming in. I want to both thank you for serving and standing for elective office. It's difficult. You both have very technical jobs. We appreciate that. Nobody's going to come in and micromanage your activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, we have more public communication. Les Poole, please come forward, state your name, area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Les Poole. I live here in the county. I wanted to talk about the fair today and just say that we have the best fair of all 36 counties. I'm going to attend tomorrow. I haven't missed a fair since the shutdown for COVID. And in the future, I'd like to see a return to having a county board meeting at the fair. Talk about a neat thing and something that's wonderful for the young folks. Maybe next year we can see that happen. Other subjects, obviously one that's very close to my thoughts was just discussed, and that is certainly the action that was taken last week. And I frankly was troubled, and it was pretty obvious in my testimony and in the testimony of others. And whether or not we describe it as micromanaging or mix words, there's no question that the action that was taken was not nominal. The action that was taken, I believe, circumvents the elected authority of officials. And I fully agree with the comments I'm hearing about how difficult the jobs are. And we just heard that from the chair, and indeed they are. They're very technical. Folks tend to think they get their one ballot goes out. No, that's not the same ballot. There's so many different districts, so many different ballot types, and there's just tens of thousands of words that go down on paper from the elections office. And I have a question. If the situation arose where the board took over an election, temporary albeit, would they not also be taking over the other duties of the clerk? In other words, are you taking over the clerk's office or just taking over the elections? The clerk has two very critical jobs, and I think that's a question that needs to be answered. I think that the statutes are pretty clear about authority, and the language that was added was not just minor. The language authorized the board to take an action that, while no matter what the situation may be or could be in the future, it invites not only legal challenges, but it invites the kind of interaction we just saw here. And regardless of your intentions, it's very clear that a future board could abuse this or misuse this, and I would hope that we would reconsider that decision, because I don't believe it's over.
Thank you, Mr. Poole, for
Thank
coming
you.
in. Okay, we have some people here, all with the same subject, and we're going to call first up Anata Blackmar. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Correct me if I didn't. Please come forward, state your name, area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Chair Smith and Commissioners, my name is Anita Blackmar, and I live in Oak Grove, not far from the Concord property. Although the Oak Lodge Library community has had to weather some setbacks, right now there's an opportunity to rededicate enthusiasm and prioritize funding for a modern new library in our area. I would like to point out that support for a new library may not be as visible as someone coming here to testify or people writing letters to the BCC. People demonstrate their support in many different ways. For example, one of my friends is an outstanding library volunteer who at this very moment is with a crew of volunteers who work every Thursday morning growing vegetables for seed saving. This woman single-handedly set up a popular seed library at the Oak Lodge and Gladstone branches. She's pulled together a team of people who aren't here testifying, but they are passionate about the library and very enthusiastic about getting a fine new library at Concord. Then there is the devoted team of the Friends of Oak Lodge Public Library 501c3. They've created the used book sale room, garden tour fundraisers, and plant sales to bring in revenue to fund kids' events, summer reading programs, teen and adult programs, and free passes to cultural venues. These volunteers are extremely supportive of a new Oak Lodge library replacing the current substandard one. I have another friend who volunteers teaching classes at the Oak Lodge Library about how to grow food. His classes often fill the small community room there to capacity. People who come to his classes definitely exceed the few parking places available at the Oak Lodge Library. He's looking forward to a library with a bigger space for classes such as his. I've been to some of the children's events at the Oak Lodge Library. These special events, whether juggling, puppet shows, storytelling, or multicultural offerings, make lasting impressions on kids, parents, and grandparents. The families might not come here to testify, but they clearly appreciate these special events and would greatly benefit from a library that could offer outdoor events along with indoor ones. but the Oak Lodge Library won't have an outdoor space until it moves to the Concord site. There is also a library board, and there is a Concord Project Task Force made up of volunteers. These people may not be here this morning, but they have dedicated many hours to moving the vision of a new library forward. I stand with all these community members who care about our library and are collectively looking forward to a modern library in a beautiful park that will be a game changer for an area that currently lacks the kind of modern library that lifts up a community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming today. Next up, Steve Jaggers, followed by Linda Newman.
Chair, can I make a comment real fast? Because I think there's just something relevant I thought it'd be interesting to share. I think Commissioner Scholl and I were at the fair on Tuesday, and we spoke to a couple gals that were FFA, with had their chickens and so forth. So I wanted to just point out that spending the time at the fair this year and years past, it's amazing how many people are from the urban area. And the two people we spoke to were from actually my neighborhood.
That's right.
And they were showing their livestock.
Their chickens.
We have a lot of people around the county, pictures. A number of the 4-H functions are in the urban area, so there is a passion and an education opportunity as well to be for that local farming. There are a lot of people. I go door to door in a lot of areas around the county. It's amazing how many people want to do their own little small gardens and also feed others. And I think Anita's comments about the one facility and the people this morning is an area along Courtney, I believe, the church off of Courtney, where that indeed happens on a large basis to feed the local community. So there is a lot of farming activity in the urban area. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I love that because it's one of our 10 goals that this commission said, and I posed the question, we're a little off track here, but thank you for being patient. When I first came on as chair, I posed a question to my board, do you think it's important that people in Clackamas County can feed themselves? Of course, especially now we're in this economic climate that we're in. And I think this project that you were talking about the seeds, my mother would have loved that. Are you kidding me? She had her own greenhouse and she would grow things and then she would pick the seeds and she would save them and she would do them for next year. So that's very fun. But I digress. Mr. Jaggers, would you please go ahead?
Not a bad warm-up, actually. Thank you for allowing me a moment to speak. I'm Steve Jaggers. I'm a 14-year resident of Jennings Lodge, retired educator, and I'm passionate about the library, but also from another point of view, and maybe the warm-up you provided. I think of the library as a community center. There are so many services that happen through and from a library, and the previous speaker and you all alluded to many of them. I hadn't realized that there's a free notary in the libraries. There are many, many, many opportunities for folks to have change their potential circumstances by learning how to cook or feed themselves, as you suggested. They collect food bank. A food bank is provided through the library. There's a cooling center, excellent opportunity here. So I think of the library as not just a resource for books and computers and access, which is a huge thing too, but as a community center that may be replicating what used to happen in churches and other circumstances in our history. And so I hope that you all will consider the library as a resource that addresses so many different needs that it's almost like you could pull money from social services and put it towards the library because that's where those services are being met. The fact that they have reading programs, clothing drives, meeting spaces, and the opportunity for people to come and participate in the after-school programs. I didn't realize that some of the local schools sometimes get out early, and so the library schedules times for student or young people and or their parents to have activities in the library. So that's another social services kind of need. my background in mental health and human services, I'm on the board of Cascadia Behavioral Health Care. I feel strongly that there are a lot of people in the community that would benefit from improved library services and the huge umbrella of opportunities that go with that. So I hope you can find a way to fund this and make it happen. It would be a wonderful thing. That poor little Oak Grove Library, which I visit regularly, really could use some help and some expansion. So that's my spiel, 27 seconds. Thanks,
Thank you
folks.
for coming forward. You have well-noted testimony. Up next is Linda Newman. Please come forward, state your name, area of residence, and you also have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'll say that I live with that gentleman.
Okay. Well, you could have come up together.
Perhaps. We did not compare notes. He was very specific in what he talked with you about. I'm going to have to read mine because I'm afraid my voice will give out or my knees will knock so loudly that you don't hear me. This is new for me, but it is because I am passionate about what libraries do mean to our community. And to say that I'm passionate about libraries is an understatement. I've never missed a chance to vote on a library levy or a bond issue in my entire life, and I have always voted yes. And frankly, I'm here today to ask you to do the same thing for us now. There's a one-time advantage here with an opportunity that I think we can't afford to pass up, the ARPA funds. I know that you all have to make tough decisions every single day that you sit on an elected board. I appreciate the service you provide to all of us. Being able to fulfill some of the promises that have been made over the years to the local voters about libraries in our area, which is, I know you all know, highly underserved by both libraries and parks. You would be giving a gift to the community that will keep on giving for decades to come. And I'm going off my notes because, again, I feel so passionate about it, but my comment that I wrote was that you would be giving the community a gift that will keep on giving for decades. I wanted to also echo what Anita said. I've heard that only a handful of people in Oak Grove and our area care about library issues. I know that that's simply not true. Starting in the spring of 2018, the NCPRD offered several public planning sessions, workshops, and open houses. All of them drew large crowds. A couple drew hundreds of people. My husband and I attended every single one. We all worked very hard to develop the vision and details of what an ideal new library in a park would look like, right down to working with cutouts on graph paper to make certain that we were optimizing every single inch of the Concord property. And everything I say holds true for the Gladstone folks, too. Many of those meetings had folks from both, and we were all working collaboratively. It was a wonderful experience. Our CPO would be envious of such attendance. As my husband said, we both use the library weekly. We do this despite its very small collection size, its limited public spaces, its very limited programming, and its antiquated facilities. The dedicated staff and volunteers there make every single person feel welcome, and they handle hundreds of holds for just my household every single year, and they do it graciously. They work very hard to make up for the missing amenities that most modern libraries provide us. We all know that good libraries are essential to a strong and thriving community. This fact will only become more important as our unincorporated areas grow in density and demand for library services increases proportionately or even disproportionately. As I said earlier, I know that,
Go ahead, finish.
that you all face difficult decisions every single day. Please complete the funding to replace our 30-year-old facilities. Give us something that we can all be proud of, something designed to grow with our growing communities into the future and that we can all be proud of also. Thank you for your attention, and most important, I'm so glad you let me get this last sentence in. Thank you for all the work that you all do every day for our community. It's noticed. It is appreciated.
I want to thank the 3 people who came up because of your very polite and passionate testimony regarding the libraries, and yes, they are important. As you know, the Board of County Commissioners agreed in May just to pause on this library and the Gladstone Library. And we are continuing to look at additional funding opportunities, and we want prices to stabilize and the supply chain to come back so we can have the materials to build it. Now, with that in mind, we are not opposed to using whatever funds we have available to do this, but maybe you can help us with saying what other monies are available. You mentioned that you've always voted to support a levy or a bond. Would this area consider a small levy or a bond? And we're also in the design phase too. And what's been troubling for this board is that we hear from the leaders in the community, the design has changed over time. I mean, I heard something 2 months ago that you know, the big they in the sky, I don't know who it was, added a bunch of stuff to the library that I don't see how is affordable. But I think that libraries are important, especially in our rural areas, although you're between kind of a rock and a hard place. And we are committed to going forward. I don't think that just because we don't talk about it is that there's not discussions or planning going forward, but I really do think we need to look at the design, what's absolutely necessary to go forward. About 2 months ago, wasn't Nancy, that we approved a whole bunch of improvements for the Concord School, and that included a new roof. What else was there?
I think there was a new roof as well as some redesign of part of the building. Yeah.
Some seismic upgrades, and I think it was about $4 million to that structure, which, whether there's a library there or not, it still can be used. Whether it's a single standalone or you use the existing space, it still needed to be done. And they're adding internet services there for the community center. I don't think there was any improvements done on the gymnasium. Was there talk of an elevator, or is there an elevator there?
Yeah,
I can't remember all the improvements to that particular area, but that was from the NCPRD Park District that's doing that. And so we are not ignoring this particular piece of property.
If I may speak, I don't think any of us believe you're ignoring it. I fear that there will never be enough money to do everything that needs to be done in our county. We all know that. I can't speak for anyone else, but yes, if you ask me to give you more money, despite the fact that I've been doing it for many, many, many years now, and I don't see it in my parks or libraries, she said politely, I would vote yes again. I don't know if many of my neighbors would be able to afford to, because many of them are on fixed incomes.
Well, it would be a vote of the people, and I tell you, it would just be the absolute minimum necessary. But I think with the folks' participation and working together with our staff and this board to get down exactly what is needed for this area, we can move forward on it, because we already have the place, right?
You have the place, and you have funds that will never come your way again in the way they have.
And we have a lot of asks for those funds.
I
let
do
me
know
tell
that.
you.
And I do know that with creative budgeting, sometimes you can find ways to fund something, and yes. So I won't make suggestions, but please, don't forget about us. And
Oh,
now I'll
no,
be
we're not
quiet.
forgetting about, we had that $80 million of ARPA come in over 2 years, and I'm going to tell you, that has been spent about 10 different ways and 10 different
Just
times.
make sure some of it comes to our library.
Thank you very much. We have a couple commissioners making comments. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to clarify that there was some interest in looking at some other options for moving the library in a different place or making it a two-level. I can tell you with confidence that both the committees that have come back and approved the existing design, essentially, in the basically the same approximate area. And they'll be meeting on September 8th, I believe, to finalize that message to the architects to continue the work that we approved earlier on the design. So there's nothing been added to the project, I think, at this point. But on September 8th, we'll have that evening, we'll know exactly what the community has. But they have come together and voted positively and together on where we are with this project, separate from the NCPRD as a library. And the other thing I want to remind everyone of is that this community supported Measure 3-310 in 2008 for the library district, for the promises that were made in that. And subsequent to that, with the Gladstone anomaly, we've come up to a solution with the previous administrator and staff, and we've been marching down this path for a long time. So I think we're almost there. It's just a matter of getting it done. We're this close, and I think we can get there here pretty soon.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher.
I love this community engagement. Thank you so much for being here. I had tremendous angst about pausing the Gladstone Library because I don't see costs coming down, and I know that supply chain issues are probably going to be with us for a long time. I did not like it, and the only reason why I voted along with my colleagues, and I know they had angst about it too, was because Mayor Stemple really wanted, she had a conversation with her, and she was very much in support of pausing. But my understanding, so I would like my county administrator, Nancy Bush, to correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding with the Oak Lodge being on the Concord property is that we were not pausing. We are moving ahead with design, which is something that needs to be done. And we have dedicated funds from legislators for this that we must utilize, and if that's at all in jeopardy, I really want to know, because I would like this board to do a redo on those votes.
So yes, there was, the commission here voted on a pause, I believe. I don't know, Tony, if you have that information, but there is a pause on that particular.
For Gladstone.
For Gladstone and for.
But we're moving forward with design.
But we are moving forward with design yes, on both. Yes, on both.
Which needed to happen anyway.
Yes,
So
yes.
it isn't putting us too far behind with the Concord property library.
Yeah, what's going to happen is that they'll both be completed around the same time.
Yeah.
So
I just want to make sure I didn't mess that up, because that was really important for me, that what we needed to do continue.
Yeah, I just want to add too that the demolition work is being done for Gladstone as well, and we are, have the site, and the site will have a sign as well, say the future home of the Gladstone Library. So everything is still moving ahead, but there has been a pause on what we're going to be doing when we're going to be doing construction. Does that help?
Well, kind of, but I didn't think there was necessarily a pause for Concord because it hasn't been designed, so we had to do that anyway.
Yeah, so the pause was for the library construction
Yes.
for
For Gladstone.
Gladstone, even though they're still working. I think they're at 60% level, and they're closing out. There's a meeting 2 nights ago, so they're continuing with OPSIS to continue the final design. And then Oak Lodge is about a little bit farther behind. We approved that to go forward, so that will be completed. That design work will be completed so that when it comes to the year end, that 1-year period, which the board said will pause for up to a year, that they'll be both ready to go at the same time.
Okay, but we couldn't have moved forward right now with Concord Library because it isn't designed, right?
Well, it's on its way, right?
Okay,
It's on its
so
way.
that's what I want to make sure it's in my brain. I do not want to pause any more than we absolutely must on these libraries, and we must work together with our community to look at all potential funding sources to get what the community wants. And I'm an absolute advocate, along with, I think everyone is an advocate for these libraries. We want them done.
Thank you.
If I can share just one last thing on this is good conversation. I think what I'm sensing from the folks here is that they have heard our previous meetings about the how we distribute the ARPA funds, and I think that they're seeing that as their opportunity for these projects to survive. So I think it's important that we consider that when we talk about the remaining funds.
Thank you very much. Good conversations. Thanks for coming today. Now, we get to move on to commissioner comments. Now, you can leave, you can sit and listen, you can do whatever you want.
Chair Smith,
Yes?
point of order, I do have additional public comment.
Oh, we do. We
registered.
have somebody online. I forgot.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please invite them in.
I will start with Mindy Garlington. Mindy Garlington, please state your name and area of residence. You will have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, ma'am.
Okay. I'm Mindy Garlington. I am a resident of Gladstone, Oregon. I am a liaison from Gladstone to the Clackamas County Library Board. I would just like to come to you and ask you to ponder this. If we in Clackamas County continue to nurture the Head Start programs and provide the best schools with the best programs and help parents with daycare facilities and help teach and find teachers so our children and our communities won't be left alone with parents at work, and we give the community places to gather, parks to learn about, and nature, and libraries to engage and educate our youth. With all of that potential support, we could have not had to spend $313 million on a new courthouse, plus fund more jails and find money for incarcerated people. I think mostly I'm asking to take on this mindset of funding our youth as opposed to waiting until later to fix them. And I really need you to think about that as you're making all the decisions with all the funding that you have within your use at Clackamas County. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, anybody else?
I will call Jane Morrison. Jane Morrison, please state your name and area of residence. You will have 3 minutes. Ms. Morrison, you're currently muted.
Thank you. My name is Jane Morrison, and I moved to Clackamas County in 1975, but I've lived in the Jennings Lodge area since 1987. I recall that we voted for the change from the countywide library system to the city branch system, and I would like to thank Commissioner Savas for reminding me that was in 2008. And I supported that change many, many years ago. I must note that the Jennings Lodge area is one of the displaced places as per the state of Oregon, and has had, as you well know, a substandard library for many, many years. It is time, in fact, it is past time to fully fund construction of both the Gladstone and the Oak Lodge Library now. The county has had many, many, many years to plan for this. Now is the time to build our library. Amen.
Thank you. Tony, anybody else?
At this time, I do not have anyone else registered to speak. If there is anyone who would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand feature, and I will call on you in the order received. Madam Chair, I do not have any hands raised.
Thank you, and that's it. Now, we will move on to Commissioner Communication. Thank you very much. Commissioner Scholl, I believe you're up first.
Well, thank you, and good morning, Clackamas County, and thank you to those folks who came in to testify this morning. I really appreciate it. On the county fair, I'd like to thank the County Fair Board for all their hard work in planning and executing what's known to be one of the best county fairs in the American West. I met people here on Tuesday at the fair who came down from Washington State. A couple of people came over from Idaho just to come to the Clackamas County Fair. It goes through Saturday night. Mom and Dad grab the kids, go down for a day where you can leave your worries behind at the Clackamas County Fair. Every night this week through Saturday evening at 7:30 p.m. is a rodeo. Make sure you take that in. That's going to be a really good one. On wildfires, I'd like to remind everybody in the county to continue to be careful with fire. The southern part of our county and the eastern part of our county, mostly in the Mount Hood National Forest, are in high and extremely high-risk fire categories at this time. Please visit the clackamas.us/wildfires website and learn about evacuation levels, sign up for public alerts, view the evacuation maps, and learn about the county wildfire protection plan. Please do that today. On tolling, it's not gone away. Again, I always encourage people to be familiar with what's being planned for tolling. Visit the ODOT website, the Metro website, the county website. Learn all you can about the plan for tolling. Make your opinions heard. And also, I'd like to remind you of Initiative IP 2024-04, which is a constitutional amendment that, if passed, would make it mandatory that tolling be approved by the voters before it's applied anywhere in the state of Oregon. On inflation, Chair Smith mentioned something about that earlier today and about farming. Last month, inflation was at 8.5% over 12 months ago. And like the kids at the fair who were talking to Commissioner Sabas and I about how to raise chickens, I recommend you raise some chickens and get a garden in, because the prices at the grocery store, when I go there, it's like, wow, I can't believe it. So I'm going to put in a garden. I'm going to get myself some chickens. I do what I can. Also, on the August 23rd special election here in Clackamas County, last evening I spoke to the county clerk. I want to give you an update on that election. Tuesday next week, August 23rd, is election day for the Oregon City Mayor and the the Oak Lodge Water Authority Director. Returns as of last night at 5 p.m. were 11.6%, or 5,461 ballots returned out of 47,066 sent out to the voters. Ballots can be dropped at drop sites through 8 p.m. on election night, or postmarked at the post office election day by 5 p.m. All ballots received by 5 p.m. Monday before Election Day will show up in the first returns online roll-up at 8:15 p.m. on election night. So far, this August election is running very smoothly. Also, I'd like to remind everybody, in November we have a general election. You can go to the county clerk's website to see what measures and candidates will be on the ballot in November in Clackamas County, and then go to the Secretary of State's website and look and see who will be on your state and federal elections in November. Now, on a tough issue here, you've heard me talk to you before about drugs and the threat of fentanyl. I'm particularly concerned about the threat to our children. Recently, our police have intercepted a new kind of fentanyl called rainbow fentanyl, which looks more like a candy instead of a pill. I'm very concerned that if this gets out in the community, children could mistake it for something else. Parents, you need to educate your children. Go to our Clackamas County Sheriff's Office website, look at the video they have on there, sit and view it with your children, and so your kids are going to be well educated. They'll be able to tell what this fentanyl, this rainbow fentanyl looks like and how to avoid it. Finally, on this day in history, in 1920, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, guaranteeing women the right to vote, was ratified as Tennessee became the 36th state to approve it. And it just goes to show, where we were 100 years ago and where we're at now. I believe this nation is always on the road to improving. The board will be in recess next week and the week after, but if any constituent has an issue, please don't hesitate. Send me an email, mshaw@clackamas.us, and I'll get back to you. On the libraries, I'm telling you what, I, for one, know that there's money out there. If we can just move some around here and there, we can get these libraries going. And I personally look forward to the day when you invite me to the opening ceremony at your libraries, because I do like coffee and donuts quite a little bit. And finally, kids, moms and dads, enjoy the summer, what's left of it. In about 3 weeks, school starts, so get out there, have fun, and be safe, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Fisher, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you. Good discussion today. I think I've done a lot of communicating, so I want to make my comments pretty brief. But I really appreciated the last person who called in and testified, because so much of what we do at the county level is to create the foundation for livable communities, and that is parks, that is libraries, that is all of the ways that we can gather and build community. And oh my goodness, as Commissioner Scholl just said, the fair, best in the West. I bet it's the best in the nation. I can't even imagine a fair being better than our fair in Clackamas County. It is so much fun, and just being there for the opening ceremonies, connecting with the fair board and the rodeo court, and we even had Miss Oregon there with us for the opening ceremonies and walking around communicating with folks at the booths and the kids and seeing the kids all excited and the parents and everybody just so joyful. And then, of course, my favorite thing, which I have not been quiet about, is the Grange has the best cookies ever. And my favorite are the chocolate chip cookies. I bought a bunch of them, just sat down, shared cookies with constituents, talked all kinds of things. Tootie, I met some of your relatives there in the Grange room. Your cousin, married to your cousin, and member of IBEW, talked about the importance of the trades and unions and good workforce and roads. Oh my gosh, the conversations about the roads. Can I just tell you, and it's not usually us, sometimes it's county roads, but it's so much ODOT and roads and challenges and safety concerns. Anyway, we went on and on, but the good that we do in creating the foundation for livable communities does prevent costs. Yes, we would still need a courthouse. I would love it if we didn't have conflict in the world and we didn't need courthouses, but our courthouse is less than a yardstick away from the river, a cliff, and it keeps eroding. We cannot have our very important public services through our justice system teetering on that very challenging cliff. But definitely, we can prevent crime. You know, you provide livable communities. It prevents juvenile intervention. It prevents foster care. It prevents drug and alcohol abuse. It prevents some mental health challenges. It absolutely creates better outcomes for our community. So let's keep at it. These conversations are really important. It's where we're building for our future and not dealing with all the challenges. So I just applaud you and thank for sticking through Commissioner communication. We don't ever usually have people that are still here at this point of the meeting. Usually everybody leaves. But thank you for being here, and we just have to keep doing the work.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, well, thank you. So it's the third Thursday morning, so JPAC met this morning, giving an update on transportation stuff. We had the C4 Metro Subcommittee meeting yesterday morning, followed by the C4 Diversion Committee for the I-205 tolling project that met yesterday afternoon at lunch, which is why I had to leave here. And this morning was JPAC. So at the first Thursday of the month, the city members, council members, mayors, and so forth appointed a new, their new representative for the new ODOT Regional Tolling Committee, which I sit on now. And the first meeting is August 24th next week, and they appointed Councilor Kathy Heisey to that position. And as an alternate, they appointed the Westland City Councilor Rory Bliatowski, if I got the pronunciation correct. So that'd be a great addition. So lots of discussions happening. Great comments this morning from some of our regional partners around the table with regards to the concerns about the tolling project. And Councilor Lewis, Metro Councilor Lewis, also made some statements. We have the timelines coming on the deadlines for public comment with ODOT and OTC. We might want to be testifying next month, perhaps, at the OTC. Some are. We'll find out. I'll have more information on that as time comes. What else here? Yeah, per our request in the last letter we submitted from the board, the ODOT did extend that comment period. So again, that's closing next month. So that deadline is fast approaching. I did want to make a comment with regard to the library issue. You know, I appreciate City Councilor Garlington phoning in today on the meeting and sharing her thoughts. It does resonate with me, her message there that I think the experience and education with libraries, it changes a lot of people. I remember when I went to school, the students that were in the library, and also now that, as I think about it, the students that were not in the library, that were not studying, right, and the opportunities that present themselves. I fortunately had access to the local library. Some of my folks did not because they live a little bit farther away. And really the size of the library and the school library, which is pretty small and pretty limited, and the hours are very limited. And also the other local library was very limited because the town we grew up in was very small. It was a farming community. Dairies, strawberry fields, and orange groves. That's the farming community I came from. So this town was built for about 900 people. The library was sized for 900 people. When I left, the population in that area was around 40,000 people. So you can imagine they didn't really keep up. And we're in that same situation in the Oak Grove area. The other news flash I just got was that the city of Johnson City has on the ballot for November annexation to the library district. I don't know if anyone knew that. But Johnson City is in the proximity of the Oak Grove Jennings Lodge area, right up the road. It's less than a mile from my home. So they'll be annexing to the library district. So that's the news flash for today. My guess is they'll probably vote for it, but we'll see. And Chair, that concludes my comments for today.
I do think that's interesting about Johnson City. I think we need to get some numbers on that and what that means. Very, very exciting. Well, if I was going to continue with my comments, it would just be a repeat of what my fellow commissioners said. This board marched in the Kitty Capers Parade, the opening fair on Tuesday, along with the fair board. It was a lot of fun, and then we participated in opening ceremonies. We all gave a little speech. We had dignitaries there, senators and representatives, and the rodeo court, the Queen, and it was just a lot of fun. I have personal friends who were showing pigs, and they have 4-H Club out of Molalla, and then another group showing sheep, and I've learned more about sheep than I ever thought was possible. So I always use this week for an education of items that I don't know about in the farming community, and I'm a fourth-generation farmer, but we never had sheep. But I want to thank you all for coming. I appreciate your participation, and I really do enjoy it when people show up and you contribute and let us know what you think. Seeing no further business before this Board of County Commissioners, we are adjourned.